Alrighty, so today I'll be just going over what components arrive in the FG head unit, whether it's MK1 or MK2, along with how to plug it up to this factory console you have there once you remove all your factory bits and pieces. So without further ado, let me start off from the top left in regards to accessories. Now, you'll receive all these accessories in your accessories bag. I have just taken them out one by one and I'll be going through what they are. Now right here on the top right, as you can see right here, is your main power harness, which plugs into the factory harness in the car and goes to our head unit via the black plug right here. Next up to the right hand side, we have the CAN bus module. So this CAN bus module is what translates all your car codes from the head unit to the car, and from the car to the head unit in regards to your steering wheel controls, air conditioning controls, and a lot of the factory features in the vehicle. Next to the right, we have the GPS antenna there, so you want to make sure you place that somewhere nicely on top of the dash or under the top hat where it can reach good signal. To the right of that, you have your 4G antenna just right there. This is what gives the 4G SIM card slot, which I'll be going through right there shortly. And you want to make sure, again, you place that under the top hat or somewhere nice and comfortable so we can receive signal. To the right here, we have the FG MK1 brackets. Actually, you can receive, if you order an FG MK2 head unit like this, you'll receive shorter brackets, smaller size, and you can get the optional FG MK1 or FG MK2 depending on your purchase. But for video purposes, I have the FG MK1 here, as I brought out the FG MK2 screen on the right, and want to make sure everyone understands that this is an install video and just demonstration video for both the FG MK1 and FG MK2. So right here is our FG MK2 screen. That is a lovely 8-inch screen that fits into all the factory FG MK2 fascias, just like that. Now, if you have an FG MK2, this will fit into your factory fascia, but if you have an FG MK1 and you'd like the FG MK2, you can go ahead and purchase our fascia kit. That's just one of our color variants, but we have the full piano black, the silver, the factory gray, and all those options available on our website. So you can convert your FG MK1 to FG MK2, no problem. So that's the FG MK2 screen. Right under that, we have the FG bus. So this is the main drive. This is what controls everything. This is what everything plugs into, and I'll be going into and through how everything plugs up and how everything connects up to this little box and onto this console right here, as you can see. So no stress. Now, just right up there, I have all your respective factory screws that you've removed from this, and I'll go through that as well. Don't stress. Now, right under this plug right here is your aftermarket reversing camera input. So if you're going to be connecting up one of our or your own aftermarket reversing cameras, you want to make sure you have this plug handy and plugged up to the unit. Next to the left is your radio antenna adapter. So this plugs up to the head unit itself, and on the opposite end, you just want to plug up your factory radio adapter to make sure you have the radio working factory side. Now, next up to the left of that, this is your factory USB port adapter. So if you have a factory USB port in a car and you'd like to retain it, you can do so just by plugging this up to one of the spare USB ports we give you and straight to your unit or your vehicle. Now, to the left of that is our lovely surround sound cancelling version 4 aftermarket microphone right here, which plugs up to the RCA set right there via the 3.5mm jack and provides you with an aftermarket microphone option, which is great quality. So if you don't want to use your factory one and you'd like a better one, be sure to plug that up. Next up, really important plug right here. This is the LCD cable plug. So this is what connects the actual screen to the, that screen right there to the drive, and that will be plugged up. I'll show you how that works as well. Now, next up is your RCA set along with the 4G SIM card slot. Now, you might receive a different color RCA set. Don't stress, we have different batches, different color variants, so if you don't receive an orange cabled version like this, don't have a headache. It will have the exact same inputs as this one. And yes, that is the orange RCA set. There's your 3.5mm jack for your microphone, but I'll be going through all that shortly, so don't stress. But yes, that is all the little bits and pieces you'll receive with the head unit. Now, additionally, on the main power harness, before we go any further, this plug right here is what controls all your factory buttons on your fascia right here. So this will plug up right behind this little plate, this little kit on the back end, and give you power up and function all of these buttons. So make sure you do plug that up correctly. Another plug that is very important on this is the CAN bus plug-in. Now that will go to the bottom left port of the unit, which I'll go through, but you want to make sure that this is plugged in firmly and you have this plugged in 100%, or basically you have no steering wheel controls, no air conditioning controls, or anything like that. Now, before I go any further, again, I'd also like to mention some head units, depending on whether you have a dual zone or single zone vehicle, may require setting up. So we do that simply through the settings, which you can contact one of our team members, or we'll show you on the head unit itself on how to go through those and set up your dual zone or single zone vehicle. Alrighty, without further ado, let me go through every single plug, bit and piece, and how to place it onto that, your factory console right there, once you detach all the factory bits and pieces from it. Now, without further ado, I'll only be using a flathead screwdriver today and a Phillips head to place all these components on the back of your factory console right here. As you can see, I'll show you how everything gets plugged up. However, obviously for the uninstallation of your factory head unit and reinstallation of our one, you will need the 8mm socket in order to make sure those the little sockets on the two sides do come out. So yes, without further ado, let me go through what we need to place on the back of this kit before going any further. So first things first, we have our lovely LCD cable, as I went through before. Now we want to make sure we just untie this quickly, which I'll do right here. Now sometimes that will come attached on the head unit, so don't stress. Now this is the main drive right here. We're going to be plugging this socket, so the white end of this LCD cable, just right there, right into this plug, and making sure that it not clips in, but plugs in all the way without any hassle. Now you want to just make sure that it lines up with the line. As you can see, it has the little clips on the two sides, and as long as you put it in, there's only one way to plug these plugs, so don't stress, but just make sure we have it all plugged up correctly. Now, in regards to why I need the flathead, is just to make sure we confirm and double check every plug very gently, but also firmly at the same time if possible. Everything is plugged in all the way with no gaps, and making sure the pins are touching the end, as if we don't have a firm connection, some of the pins aren't tapping, and that is what causes a lot of issues. So make sure that it's nice and plugged up firmly. Make sure, just make sure I don't damage. There we go, no damage, and nice and firmly, just like that, no problem. That's all plugged up. Now what we want to do is run this through either side, however you'd like, but before we run that through, I'm just going to leave that plugged up to the drive, just like that. We're going to be grabbing our main power harness, and we're also going to be running this cable, as I went through before, that activates all the factory buttons here. So all these buttons to this plug right on the top there. If you guys can view that, there's a plug right there, right under the vents, and you want to make sure that this black and orange cabled plug gets plugged up to that nice and firmly. So what we want to do is just plug this up, first things first, into that port. This should be the first plug that goes in, nice and comfortably. There we go. And as I said, again, use a flathead or any of those other plugs to make sure it clips in, and we have a solid connection that can't be undone. Perfect. Just want to make sure that is all the way in, or else we're going to have some issues with our factory buttons, and nobody likes that, do we? Perfect. That's all in. And again, make sure you have a flathead or something, or your fascia removal toolkit. That is what my installers also use, to make sure that this is all plugged up correctly and fitting in all the way. No worries. Now that is all plugged up. That is nice and firmly connected. There's no way of this coming loose or anything along those lines. Perfect. Now we just want to make sure we run this through, as I said, either side. You can run this straight through just like that. We'll leave it just like that for the moment, for the time being. And once I place this kit right back onto it, I'll show you how to run that cable. Now, we're going to pop this aside, and actually, we're going to pop this on now. So, I'm going to run the LCD cable through the right hand side, just like this, right under the actual bracket here. So you want to make sure you're running this cable. I'll show you guys much more clearly in a moment, but because we don't have a CD drive now, there is no way of it really blocking any of the CD ports, which is another benefit of not having that. It is outdated CDs, but if you do have a CD that you'd like to use, be sure to check out the link. You can just simply download all the burn your CD onto a USB and play all your music through a USB if you'd like. So we're going to make sure we firmly place this right under, just like that. No worries, that's done. and just want to make sure this is nice and comfortably run under that as well. Now it might give you a little bit of resistance at times. Do not stress, as long as it clips into place, the screws will hold it into place regardless, and as long as, there we go, as long as this orange cable is not under the unit, you'll have no problems whatsoever. So let's just pop that through, no worries. Now this opposite end will go to the CAN bus, which I'll show you shortly. So what you want is a connection that looks exactly like that. As you can see, I have the cable plugged up nice and firmly there. I have it running under the bracket, and I have the LCD cable from the other side running under the bracket as well. And what we will do quickly, just to make sure we confirm this and there is no way of it popping out, is screw the factory plugs into place. So where did I, there we go. So I've placed all the respective factory plugs, factory screws, I do apologize, right there. And we're just going to pop them into place. So I'm just going to empty them here on the right hand side and use them one by one. So just, you will have all these screws available from your factory head units. All you need is a Phillips head to screw these into place, which I'll do right here. That one, just put the screw will go right there, nice and securely, no problem. Screw that in nice and tight. Second one, just like that. I'll place on the top left so we have it nice and firm before I put the last two on. Perfect. Just like that. And I'll show you how I've done it as well. I'll flip this back over. As you can see, this cable's running nice and comfortably through the right, doesn't have any resistance or anything like that, and it's just ready to go to the CAN bus module that we have, so no stress there. Just going to place the last two screws in to hold the head unit in place. Perfect. And lucky last one right here. Perfect. Alrighty, so as you can see, again, I've put all the screws into place. I've ran the LCD cable from the left, and I've ran the plug that activates all your factory buttons right here on between the vents and the head unit. You want to make sure you plug that up nice and firmly and use a flathead to confirm the plug clipping into place. Okay, that is what again causes a lot of the problems for the fascia buttons and those not working for you. Now you want to make sure that that's plugged up, because basically the CAN bus and the factory modules all work in a cycle. If this isn't connected, then you'll have issues with steering wheel controls, you might have issues with air conditioning controls, and etc. You want to make sure that all plugs are matching and plugged up just as I do them right now. So now this cable will run to our screen right at the top, which I'll show later, but what we want to do is now plug up everything to the head unit itself. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to start off with the main power harness plug. Now I'm going to plug that up nice and firmly into place. This one's going to get clipped in just like that, so I'll just show you guys just like this. This one will get clipped in just like that, and you want to make sure, again, I've clipped it in, I know it's clipped in, but just to double check, always double check and make sure that it's clipped in all the way, so there's no chance of it causing any issues. Or let's say you go over a speed bump after your installation one day and boom, it just comes apart. You want to make sure it's clipped in. You hear that clip? There we go, and there's no way of it coming loose. Alrighty, now the next plug I want to quickly plug in and make sure and double check everybody is plugging in perfectly is this CAN bus plug-in right here. Now this CAN bus plug-in is one of the main plugs for the CAN bus in order to activate all your factory controls, and this plug just simply plugs up to the bottom left port right here where I've just put my finger over. So you want to make sure you just plug that up and it clips in. So boom, done. And I heard the clip, but again, I'm going to use not the Phillips head but the screwed flathead to confirm everything is nice and secure in this plug. Perfect. And as you can see, the CAN bus plug-in goes to the bottom left. Alrighty, now we have the two CAN bus plugs right here. So I'm going to scoot over and grab my actual CAN bus itself, and I'm going to place that one end of this blue box. Now this is very important you do this correctly. I'll just move this aside, bring our phones back together. Now you want to make sure that this is plugged in nice and firmly and there's no issues whatsoever. So we want to grab this side, the smaller end that comes from the main power harness right there, and plug it up to this plug. Done and dusted. And as you saw, the opposite end comes from the plug that we plugged between the vent and the head units, and that one just plugs up just like that. Boom. And as just again, you want to just make sure you use well, obviously you can just use your thumb right here to make sure it's nice, firm and plugged in. These ones you don't need to really use a flat head, but yes, there you go. That is all plugged up firmly. We have it connected. That is for our factory plugs. Now, in a sense, if I plug this up right now to the vehicle, all the factory features, steering wheel controls, the factory air conditioning controls upon setting it up to dual zone or single zone should start working immediately, as I have all the CAN bus connections plugged up perfectly, which is what I want to make sure with everyone. The CAN bus connections is what controls all the factory features. Now, this is the main power harness plug right here. This will be going to the factory main plug that you have in a vehicle, so you'll be going through that once you put it in a vehicle. Additionally, you have a 5-volt amp cable right here, so you can attach that to your amp if you need be. Next, you have all your sub inputs, so the male in for your sub in. You also have your AUX in, left in, you have your AUX right in, and all the additional connections for any speakers, headrest, DVD players and whatnot. So if you want to install those, you do have that option as well, mostly for audio of course, so your left, right and rear speakers initially. So if you have aftermarket speakers as well, you want to make sure you plug the male ends to any female ends there. But let's set that aside. We've just gone through the very basics, the main power harness. Next, what we're going to do is, well, we don't have it in a vehicle, so we can disregard the factory USB port plug. Next, we'll have our aftermarket reversing camera plug input. Now that aftermarket reversing camera input goes into the bottom right port right there. So we'll just plug that up just like that. There we go. Again, use a flat head to make sure that the connection is nice and secure. Don't apply too much pressure or you might break the actual bracket, the actual plug right here. You just want to just lightly press it down and make sure that there's no more room for it to go in, as it is plugged up all the way, just like that. Now right there you have your brake cable along with your aftermarket reversing camera input. That's in the bottom right port there, and we can just leave that just like that, no problem. Alrighty. Now the next part we're going to be plugging up to the unit is your 4G antenna right here for your 4G SIM card slot. Now you want to plug that to these ports we've provided you on the back. You have two different ports, as so from the version 4 onwards. So from the version 4 you have the Wi-Fi antenna inbuilt, so you no longer need to attach the Wi-Fi antenna, just your 4G and your GPS antenna. So I'm just going to loosen this up a little bit, and I'm going to screw that onto the 4G port that's labeled 4G right at the top. As you can see, we have the labeling right there. Just going to screw that into place just like that, nice and firmly. Now you can use also a tongue or anything along those lines to make sure it's screwed on tighter, but as long as it's nice and tightly secured, and this one can rotate on its own just like that, that means it is all plugged up correctly. And what we want to do is then run this through the right side of the head unit, around the vents, and just straight up, or just straight through the vents just like that, straight up behind the screen, or place it somewhere nice and comfortable so there's no issues in regards to signal. Okay, now the next antenna you obviously get is your GPS antenna. That just goes to the port on the right hand side of that. You want to make sure you screw that on nice and securely as well, so make sure it's straight. Once it's straight, then screw it on so you don't cause any issues with it being bent or damaging it in any way. Perfect, so we're just going to screw that on nice and comfortably. That's got nowhere else to go. Perfect. Next we have our factory so this is our radio antenna adapter for your factory radio antenna. Now this side of the antenna, the male end, will simply plug up to this little port that's labeled ANT for antenna, so that will just go right through. Make sure you plug it right through the center just like that, and push it in all the way down, so there's no way of it losing signal or coming loose later on during your install. Now the next set of plugs that we're going to screw a plug into, which has a little bit of a firmer plug-in, as we want to make sure the RCAs for any aftermarket speaker system, sub, amp, or whatever you're placing does not come loose whatsoever. So obviously plugging this up will be a little bit tougher, which is why I brought this flathead along also. So we'll just plug that up. There we go. Takes a little bit of pressure. As I said, we want to make sure that this plug never came loose, just to the fact that you have all your speaker connections into this, you have your microphone connection into this, and this coming loose is not a good signal. Alrighty. And obviously right here you have your 4G antenna at 4G SIM card slot attached. Now obviously we have the different styles. Now this will be run to your glove box or under the unit, however you're comfortable, so place that loose. We'll deal with that once we're placing it in the actual vehicle itself. But for now, the last little plug we need to pay the last 3 plugs is your USB inputs, which I'll go through the different variations we have, along with your microphone. So let us undo the little wrapping on that. Now your microphone should be ran to the top right near the driver's side, wherever you're comfortable, to make sure you have the best audio. And this plug-in for the microphone simply plugs up to the, let's just leave all the cable out, pop it right outside so you guys don't see the opposite end there. We just need to worry about this end for now. We just plug that up to the black RCA that's coming out of the RCA set, labeled mic. Or if it's not labeled, it's just a single black 3.5mm jack RCA. Alrighty, now the last 2 plugs left for us are our USB inputs right here. Sorry, last 3, because of if your microphone requires extra power, we give you this plug. So I'll show you where this USB input goes to. I did leave these for last as I wanted to show the microphone plug-in. So this is the 4-pin USB input right here. This will go between your CAN bus plug-in and your aftermarket reverse camera plug-in, which I'll show you right here. So right there, let's set these all aside. I do apologize for the mess. Right there between the CAN bus plug-in and the aftermarket reversing camera plug-in, there's 2 ports for your USBs, so, USB inputs. So this 4-pin one will plug onto the one on the left. The smaller one will go to the one on the left. And again, you want to use a flathead to make sure that it plugs in all the way. So let's just make sure that, oh, see, this one did not plug in all the way straight off the bat. And there we go. Now it's nice and plugged in. And the second dual USB input for your version 4 will go into the port just on the right of that. So let's plug that up just on the right, just like that. Boom. That is done. I heard the clip, but again, just to make sure there's no leeway or anything along those lines, we're going to make sure we use a flathead. Oh, there you go. See, we can push it in a little further. Done and dusted. Now that's not coming loose whatsoever, just like the rest of our plugs, nice and firm. And we can simply, and as I said, if your microphone, which we've plugged up, as you can see, just right here to the black RCA for the microphone, as I went before. If it's not working and it requires extra power, this cable right here can be attached to the 2-pin USB input, 2-pin port that we have, just like that, and that will give it extra power for the microphone to run for you. So don't stress about that. There's 2 different ways of doing that. Now we have everything connected up. All we need to do is run, let's just flip this upside down, and again, you just want to make sure all your connections are simply placed down just like that. Take a moment to have a look at that and make sure that your plugins are all connected up just like that. Now I know it's a little bit of rough right there, but everything is plugged in nice and appropriately, nice and firmly right there, just like that. No worries. Now we're going to flip this upside down for us. We can just let the plugs go all loose down here for the time being, as we don't have it in a vehicle at the moment. Now what we want to do is, let's flip this way for you. Just simply, now you can, if you have a Mark 1 or a Mark 2, so you can use a Mark 1 or a Mark 2 with this kit, so don't stress. The only difference for us for the Mark 1 and Mark 2s is the factory plugs for your microphone and reversing camera, along with the fascia kit and screen installed. So if you're getting a Mark 2 put in your Mark 1, you just want to make sure you purchase the fascia kit, and if you're purchasing any factory plugs for your reversing camera or any factory microphone, you go ahead and purchase that separately through the accessories menu on our website, or make sure you contact one of our team members upon purchase so we can make sure the appropriate plug for your vehicle itself is sent off. Now I don't have the clips attached, but you want to use the factory clips from your factory fascia that you have, or if you already have an FG Mark II fascia, that will already be there, and simply place it on like that. Next, we can just simply place our screen, once it's all clipped in, right onto the back appropriately, just like this. There we go. That is in place. That is in place just right there, and we can use the screws to just simply screw them into nice and firmly and straight, just into place. So I'll use the factory screws right here. Now you might have a different set of screws. Make sure you use your own factory screws that are appropriate to your vehicle. There we go. Oh, sorry, use these two screws right here. So you want to use your factory screws just like that, put them into place, screw them on. Now, what you want to do, obviously sometimes your vents will be much larger and sticking out, so you want to use these, you want to run the cable on the right and or left hand side around the thin bits of the slimmer parts of the vent, and simply through the right hand side, straight through, and then you can fold it just like that, and simply plug this up. There's only one way to plug up this factory plug for the LCD to connect the unit and the screen, and once you have it in place, just make sure you plug it up nice and securely, and you clip it in, and it's not coming loose whatsoever. Don't pull too tight, but if you just pull from the plug's end and it's not coming loose, that is a perfect condition. And as I said, run it through the right hand side just like that. Make sure your main power harness is heading that way, it's not heading towards the screen. And as you can see, as long as we have it run just like that, that is a perfect connection. No worries. Alrighty, now without further ado, this is actually already ready to go back into your vehicle itself. So obviously I haven't put the bottom clips in, but once the bottom clips in, this will sit nice and tightly and securely with your factory fascia, just like that. And you're ready to place this in a vehicle and run your factory USB plugs. You're ready to run your antennas, and all you need to do is just simply get everything run. Microphone, factory USB plugs. You want to make sure you plug the main power harness securely, and you can follow our YouTube video for that. But this is just generally how to connect up all the bits and pieces and all the plugs onto the back of the head unit and what exactly they control. So if you have any further questions or you'd like any other further videos made on the FGs, please message our support team and they can do that for you. However, generally speaking, that is how you plug up everything to the factory console that you have here once you remove all the factory bits and pieces off it right away. Hopefully that was nice and informative. Any further questions, please, as I said, contact our support team and they'll be more than happy to help you. Have yourself a lovely day, and everybody stay safe.